There's three key topics of contention in the photographic world. I'm going to tackle all three of them because there's a clear right and wrong answer to each. So this video is going to be a catch-all. We're talking sensor size, RAW versus JPEG, zoom versus prime. This is my medium format rig. It is better than a full frame, which is bigger than a crop sensor, which is bigger than a Micro Four Thirds and bigger than a phone, and better than all of them. This is better. Large format is better than this. Doesn't matter what you're shooting, doesn't matter what genre it is, whether it's a picture of your dog on a walk, whether it's the Olympic Games, a bigger sensor will create better image quality. However, despite having this is my most used camera. In terms of sheer frames taken and images looked at, this is what I take most of my photos on. Now, of course, there's other variables like autofocus. One of the reasons why full frame is so popular is because full frame has the ability to have lenses that can focus quickly. So really, for most people, in terms of what camera system or sensor size should you buy, the best one in terms of all compromises would be full frame. Now, for me, whether I'm using Micro Four Thirds or something like this, it's hell of inconvenient. So I'm either using medium format or iPhone because anything in between is still cumbersome and doesn't slip in my pocket nice and easy. I can't fit a Micro Four Thirds in here comfortably. Yes, a Micro Four Thirds is smaller than this, but it's still a pain in the arse. Now, the image quality from this doesn't even come close to comparing to a medium format camera, not even close. But I would rather take this on my dog walks, take pictures of my dogs and kids with my iPhone because it's always with me anyway, it's already here, and the autofocus is pretty darn good. If I was photographing the Olympic Games, this big boy here would be too slow and cumbersome and the files would be too big, so a full frame camera would be the answer. The bigger the camera you buy, the more expensive and better the lenses are. And that is two things which are in two opposing directions. They're better, but they're also more expensive. So yeah, they're great, but they cost more. So the smaller the sensor, the worse the lenses are, and the cheaper they are. They're not as good, but they are cheaper. So it's all about finding the compromise you need. So which sensor's best? Well, the biggest one, 8x10 is the best sensor size you can have. The best digital is a 645 made by Phase One. The best affordable digital is a Fuji GFX. The best full frame would be something like a Canon R5 or whichever other brand's premium full frame it is. They're all about the same. There's not much in it for stills work. And then after that, you're just making bigger and bigger compromises until you go, well, actually, this is so small. Yeah, it's not as good, but it fits in your pocket. There's only one last thing with sensor size to consider here, and that is the file it can take. If you're on an 8x10, it's film, it's beautiful, it's better than anything else. If you're on medium format, you get 16-bit TIFF files, which is better than anything full frame can offer. If you're on full frame, you get a high resolution 50 megapixel file, which is almost enough for anything, and it's good. It's fine. You could shoot a billboard on a full frame camera, but it'll look better on a medium format. You could shoot the Olympics in a Micro Four Thirds, but it'll look better on an 8x10. However, if you're shooting press, then you really need a 35mm full frame camera because you need the compromise between big sensor size and functioning autofocus and speed of shooting. That's sensor size covered. There isn't much more to it. So it really depends. But prime versus zoom is a very different thing. This is my 90mm Actar lens. This is my daily driver. This is the one that gets the bills paid at the moment. This right here is a prime lens. You can't put a zoom on this camera system, but it's a prime lens. It is optically flawless. But it's a bit inconvenient because I need lots of them if I want to change focal length. And if I'm doing portraits, sometimes I want to compress the background or whatever, it can be a problem. So we have zooms. This is I have to read the thing, 45 to 100mm f4 zoom on a medium format camera body. Now this camera looks big, but the lens itself, if I just take it out, this prime is tiny. It's nice and lightweight if you ignore the rest of the camera. Now there's no doubt in my mind that if you want the best lens possible, a prime is the answer. If you want the most versatile lens possible, a zoom is an answer. I could shoot a campaign for Coca-Cola with this. It's a medium format zoom lens. These are good enough in a studio. Now, as you go down in the sensor sizes, the lenses become less good for a couple of reasons. One is, if you're buying a Micro Four Thirds camera, the cost of a Micro Four Thirds camera is less. So logically, from a marketing standpoint, you need to make cheap lenses that work with that. APS-C lenses are cheaper than full frame lenses because From a marketing standpoint, they need to match up the spending power of the user. Medium format lenses are hella expensive because they match up this. Now, the other part of it is, in order to make a lens good enough for the sensor, of course, you could put a medium format lens on a micro four thirds camera. It'd be great, but it doesn't need it. You're not getting anything more because the sensor's the limiting factor. When you've got a big sensor and a lot of pixels, you need a really good lens, and that becomes expensive too. Now, this zoom lens is absolutely good enough. It is not as good as this, but it is absolutely good enough, and I would be happy shooting a campaign for Coca-Cola on this or this. This does technical stuff, but assuming we're just focusing normally, both of these will get the job done to an absolutely perfect level. If you're shooting with a good quality camera and a good quality lens made from 2010 onward, you're golden. If you think zooming with your feet and using primes is the answer, you are absolutely incorrect, because that's not how lenses work. But if you prefer a prime, absolutely. And my argument for using primes when I was a wedding photographer very, very long ago was that if I pick this lens up and it's at 83.2 millimeters, my brain can't work out what that's going to look like when I hold it up to my face. But if I pick up my camera with a 28mm prime that I've been shooting on for a decade, I know what 28mm is. I can do this above my head, grab a shot, and know what I've got. And there's a real benefit to that. Also, if you're a wedding photographer, it's unwieldy. A little 28mm prime on a camera, it's nice, and it's nice to work. So zoom versus prime. Primes are better, zooms are a bit more convenient. Both are good enough. Pick whichever one works for you. For my still life work, we use primes. For my portrait work, we use zooms. Now, the last of the taboo subjects, JPEG versus RAW. Now, when I started photography many, many moons ago, the JPEGs that came out of camera were okay. If you go and shoot on one of these modern Fuji X100 cameras today, the JPEGs are banging. My iPhone JPEGs, beautiful. However, here is the actual difference. Assuming you have editing skill or color grading skill in this context, you can make your RAW file look however your JPEGs come out. That's not a problem. It doesn't take long at all to match a JPEG. But if you want to have full control of the edit in terms of exactly how it's processed, if you want to give it a look slightly different to the JPEGs that are baked in, you need to shoot RAW. If you want to have infinite possibilities in post, which really you do have with a 16-bit RAW file of 100 megapixels, you can pretty much do what you want to it. You need a RAW file. If you want to shoot for the edit, instead of shooting for capture, you need a RAW. It's the film day equivalent. JPEG is slide film, and this is C41 when you've got a RAW file coming out of this. You can play with it. You can adjust the white balance. You can also, you can mask it easier in a RAW file than a JPEG. Masking a JPEG is harder than masking a RAW file, especially if you use any of the automated options within Photoshop. I was going to capture one then, but both. RAW files are always better. However, the majority of the photographs I take in my life are JPEG, and they never get edited. I take more photos with my phone than with my camera, and I'm a professional photographer. But it's a bit like a busman's holiday, isn't it? I don't want to go on holiday, shoot loads of RAW files, and then have to come home and process them. I just want to use my phone that's in my pocket anyway, take some nice pictures, and that's it for me. Now, that's just my mantra. You might be different. You're like, oh, do you know what? I like to rock up on holiday with a full-on medium format technical camera because that's what makes me happy. And that's great. That's absolutely what you should do. You should do what makes you happy. But for me, this is plenty for 99% of photographs I take, and anything else is a client's work, and we're rocking out the big boys.